in varying sectors, as it provides more opportunities for data collection through sensors integrated in manufacturing systems, warehouses, assembly lines, and vehicles. This is done by integrations which boost collaborations through connected devices, benefiting from construction firms to retail stores and clothing brands to restaurants. IoT is also allowing research on consumer requirements, buyer cycle, and the scope for improvement along with newer methods for advertising. IoT technologies essentially helps with effective interpretation, collection, and sharing of this data. Above all, IoT means increased efficiency through automation. Let's explore how IoT really helps boost business operations.
So to further discuss boosting operations through IoT technologies and integration, I'm really delighted to introduce our next panel of speakers. So a very good afternoon to all of you watching Valletta Tech Summit. Thank you so much to all our panelists, especially for joining us live now. So I'd like to go straight into it and possibly start by asking Mr. Turku from Dell Technologies, what are the challenges in the manufacturing space and how IoT can help in this regard?
Hello, I'm happy to participate in this event, I will start with the challenges in manufacturing, which we are seeing that they've grown enormously, leading to increased complexity such as high product diversity, short delivery times, rapid process adaptations, and smaller batch sizes, even to as small as one item. With the age of Industry 4.0 upon us, the case for implementation of a smart factory is growing, which generates the need for enhanced automated processes and functions. These challenges can be seen in many areas of a factory, and I will start with the production planning office. Here there are often used applications for example, for order management, production quality logistics, or even workforce management. All these applications have to be tightly integrated and to work seamlessly. And for this, we from Dell Technologies have dedicated industrial-ready workstations and servers which are dedicated to work in industrial environment with harsh conditions. Then we have the production line where we see the workers and the real world that needs to connect with the digital image of the smart factory. This connection is being done through the edge computing and through the network infrastructure. The supply of information from sensors and systems on the production line has to go to specific operator consoles. And this became a very important and a critical part of the process. Also, in this aspect, we have special industrial PCs and gateways that can help in collecting this data and display it on operator consoles. Then we want to make sure the production line works correctly. So a smart factory should also have an automated monitoring system. In the same time, we are seeing also the need for the operators to manually inspect equipment on the production line and being connected to this automated monitoring system. This can be done through the help of handheld devices such as rugged tablets, which can display in real time information from the monitoring system while the operator is being located near the equipment they want to actually check. So yeah, these would be our main challenges that we identified in manufacturing.
Thank you so much. You set the tone there, Mr. Turku, so congratulations on that. Thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. So, Mr. Nisi, if I may ask you, from your experience, what are the major phases of implementation of IoT?
Yeah, when it comes, so first of all, thanks for having me today. My name is Fabrizio Nisi. I'm working as a business development manager for cloud solution at Siemens. And yeah, so for us, it's very important really to work together with customers to identify also use case, because very often we also have the experience that many of our customers, and also talking with our competitors, also customer very often they do not have a real business case to really work and capitalize on, because of course IoT is also a matter of investing also such an amount of of budget for a specific project. So we also want to make sure that some of our customers were already using our mainly OT technology. So I'm talking, for example, to the automation part, be a motors, be a switcher, be also control panel at PLC, so industrial PC, they really can get then the data then to the cloud. So that's also important that we work together with them. We really make sure that they understand that we understand them. So it's also important a real, specific and industrialized solution, not really this generic approach that sometimes also looks like a very as a marketing campaign. So it's also very, very important. On the other side, we also rely heavily on partners. So partners are very often like a very important game changer within the customer engagements, because also partners are in the sense helping customers, for example, developing a specific solution, maybe a connectivity solution, if it's whether if it's cloud to cloud, if it's rather OT to IoT connectivity, ERP system connection to cloud, for example, or the partner on the other side, they can also help our end customers at the very end of the day, for example, the so-called independent software vendors, also to develop specific applications for our platform, because our platform paradigm also relies on the fact that customers at the very end of the day, they first collect data into our cloud system, but then the real game changer are of course the applications that are developed and also deployed on the on this platform. So this is also very crucial for us. Another point that I also would like to make you aware is also scalability. Very often customers, they do start with a small proof of value. It could be for a couple of months, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, really according to, the customer business needs and the business case. And then really we are making sure that we take the customer in his or her hands and really be with the customer till really they get the first idea, they get the first value out of this technology, because I guess also for the majority of the typical automation customer, the whole IoT space is a very new and very they do not really have much experience with it. So we also need to make sure that we capture this momentum with the customer, identify the first use case, define a business case, meaning also defining some concrete and measurable KPIs, and then really show to the customer that they can take advantage out of it in this first POV phase. Then we try also, of course, to develop the whole customer business case over time. So we have also a pretty nice customer success management setup, it's called. So it's actually a post-sales organization within also the this cloud space at Siemens that really take care about adoption of the customers. They do take care about also the expansion of a customer. So because in the first line you land a deal, you land the first opportunity, but then of course we want to make sure that our customer adopt over time also our technology. So IoT is not about something which happens from today till tomorrow. It's a process. So it's a learning curve both for customers and also for us as a provider at the very end of the day. So we also want to make sure that whether if it's, for example, a closed loop use case, if it's a purely condition monitoring, if it's more an energy management or an OEE monitor, could be also, for example, remote services, so that we also make sure that we capture the customer interest. We really deeply understand where is the customer pain point, and then we can also capitalize on this. And so, yeah. Please.
Now, Mr. Nisi, to add on what you're saying, I'd like to rope in now Mr. Stanley Mueller, because possibly some organizations, some enterprises, businesses might be lost where to start when considering IoT. From your professional experience, what's your advice? What guidance would you share with us here?
Well, from IV's perspective, what we see when we speak to our global customers is that they do some kind of innovation or they work on the efficiency of their processes. But when it comes into the industry of Industry 4.0, which contains partially IoT, cybersecurity, smart data, you see that customer in general always are a bit careful because they in usual companies, they miss maybe some knowledge. And I think from an IoT Industry 4.0 perspective, it's important for us to guide them from that point. Because a company, for example, can have a machine at the factory and this machine is running. Companies are focused on the core product and the core process. But what we know is that such machines, it doesn't matter if they're 20 years old or different brands, that they houses a lot of information. And with this information, it's easily to implement IoT or Industry 4.0 into their processes. So long story short, it's for us important to make them aware that it's not that complex and it can be relatively simple to start implementing IoT within efficiency within the business organization.
So much, Mr. Mueller. And possibly here I'd like to rope in Mr. Jeffrey Farrugia, CEO of Hands-On, and he might fit perfectly here because his company has been supporting local and international partners in trying to embrace and harness IoT and emerging technologies. So maybe to start with, Mr. Farrugia, you can share with us some real-life examples of how you're supporting businesses in trying to acknowledge the importance of embracing IoT in their operations and processes.
Thank you very much, Keith. Good afternoon to everyone, and thanks for hosting us. Yes, just to go straight to the point, we are obviously constantly in touch with various industries and businesses, and we try to, let's say, demystify this myth, which is not a myth, but it's reality of IoT. So as everyone was saying before me, many businesses are aware of what IoT technology can do for them. However, maybe since it's still in the beginning of the hype cycle, or it's still in the hype cycle, certain industries still require some use cases that they can say, the aha moment, this is how it works and this is how it will help me. We've been, for the last 12 years, we've been developing our own solutions. Hands-On Systems is a system integrator, so we try to, let's say, build up all the components together and offer one complete solution, an end-to-end solution. So we go to the network, we go to the sensor manufacturer, we integrate them with our software platform, we install the sensor. It's like a one-stop shop. Obviously, we need partners, we need like infrastructure partners, hardware partners that obviously will help us to complete the solution. One of the most latest, and I'm very proud of the project, is actually an LPG tank monitoring solution, which we're using IoT technology to measure the level of the tanks of this bulk distributor. So basically, the idea, I'm going to share also my screen just to help you. I don't know if you are actually seeing my screen. So yes, basically the idea was to measure the tank level of around 600 tanks remotely from across the island of Malta and Gozo. And the idea was for the distributor to be able to measure not just the current level, but also historically how much LPG was used by every client. This was combined together with a number of sensors, level sensors, and also with the help of our software solution and also our installation, we've noticed that now there's some real clear and tangible benefits. And this is what I think the industry requires to hear. what is it, what does it actually, what's in it for me, what's in it for us, how does it actually reduce my bottom line, how does it increase my revenue, how does it increase my efficiency. And this is actually many of case studies, use cases that we can relate to and that can really help bridge this gap between the myth and reality. So this particular use case, this particular client saw a reduction in overall fuel for distribution of around 28%. So that's basically almost 1/3. Why? Because now that he knows exactly the level of every tank, instead of going at short notice to refill the tank, he's actually knows before and he's actually planning his distribution, his refueling. So rather than leaving it for the last minute and he has to go up to the north side of the island just for one client, now he's actually distributing the gas in a more efficient manner. We also saw that clients are also happier because they are always guaranteed distribution, like the availability of the LPG itself. Before we installed these sensors, it was more of a hit and run or hit and miss. Like, listen, we have no gas, like we have no LPG, please come urgently. Now clients also have visibility. We gave them an app whereby all the restaurant managers, hotel managers, all the people in charge of the tanks, they can actually monitor and they can receive an alert, both the client but also the distributor, they can receive an alert when the tank is below, say, 20%, so that they can advise the distributor and they can plan accordingly. So I think this is, without getting into further detail, this is an interesting use case of the many out there that IoT can definitely create and assist. And obviously, this is where I think IoT comes very, very handy when it comes to actually improving the overall operations of a business, of an industry, of basically the whole world. So the idea is always that IoT can make everything much smarter, much more intelligent, and much more efficient.
Mr. Farrugia, I guess AI fits in perfectly as well there. It's not only IoT, but also the use of AI, right?
Yeah, it's then the sky is the limit. So IoT is more of a data gathering aspect to the whole value chain. So then it's once you have the data and you're collecting data remotely, then you can include AI, you can include blockchain as well. So in certain projects, we're seeing the possibility of integrating blockchain with the temperature data that we're collecting. It's a pharmaceutical use case whereby the client requires this data not to be tampered with, and it's like immutable. And this is where blockchain comes in. So we're using IoT sensors, which gives you like 5-6 years autonomy. We will collect temperature data from his various refrigerated compartments, and all the data goes into the blockchain. AI can also help in then analyzing the data and also predict. So another layer on top of this distribution system could be that we can come up with trends, and through some AI algorithm, we can then predict the trend and therefore make it even more efficient when it comes to reordering and stock and predicting the usage that the whole client base is going to require. So this is, I think, IoT in general has we like to call it in a small word, facilitated the let's say the operational process. So IoT is very crucial when it comes to the actual data gathering aspect, but obviously other technologies can then come into play.
I'd like to ask Mr. Turku now, following your remarks, because I guess every producer, every manufacturer aims to improve the process efficiency and also the product quality. How can AI and IoT technologies can be used to achieve this?
Quality management is a very important aspect in production of all of goods of all kinds. All the manufacturers want to ensure their products meet their customer requirements. And production processes can include lots of steps, and in each of these steps, possible source of error can be included, which will, of course, negatively influence the entire production process. So in order to avoid these errors, on the production line, we have to have several checks of the products during the production and also at the end of this production line. So it is efficient to have an automated system based on AI and video control, for example. But in order to develop this AI system, some important steps needs to be achieved. First of all, we will need the operators to classify, for example, images from the video stream with products with defects and without defects. Then, using the AI and neural networks, these images are being introduced into this network and the training is being performed. After the training of this neural network is being performed, new images are introduced into this network, and we'll see that decisions are being made whether products are having issues or products are correct. Also, it is advisable that this kind of a solution should be checked from time to time to see whether the algorithm is working properly and the decisions are correctly made. This type of solution can be implemented with the help of Dell Technologies predefined AI systems and our business partners, which offer the development platform.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Turcu. I don't know if Mr. Nisi and Mr. Mueller can answer the following question. Maybe they can give us proven examples of how IoT-driven solutions helped supported businesses to improve the manufacturing processes and level of product quality and efficiency as well.
Maybe if you allow me to start, I think, as I was also mentioning before, it's very crucial really to identify with the customers a concrete use case. So whether if it's really energy management or if it's more, for example, analytics-based production engineering or any kind of other, use case for the customers, really to make sure that we get an understanding on the customer, because operational efficiency could, from my opinion, be just one of the many KPIs or any use cases that could be addressed with the customers. But yes, absolutely. So IoT should, even one of our mottos would be really to IoTize, digitize also the customer machines. I mean, really making sure that at the very end of the day, the end customers get this kind of IoT as a service. So they just do not get from us the machine itself with all, motors and all the components, but really they also can get, for example, the whole IoTize part on it. And maybe, for example, a digital twin, really to make sure that also we can simulate, so we can really digitally simulate, for example, the functionalities and the process of a machine, really to make sure that we maybe capture some bottlenecks where at a certain period of time during a certain machine production timestamp something is going wrong, and really how to make sure, and it's even, I think, even more relevant for customers rather than condition monitoring, how to do predictive maintenance and preventive, really to make sure how to anticipate that my machine maybe is going to failure. And I think that's also be one of the most crucial game changers for our customers.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Nisi. I don't know, Mr. Mueller, if you want to add any proven examples from your end.
That's a good point, what Mr. Nisi mentioned by the end. For example, regarding predictive maintenance. If you have a machine running and there's an electronic component inside where you can measure the temperature, where you can measure the current of the machine. If you have live data and you can as well save the data from the past and you see something changing in that information, As a maintenance department in a factory, what you can do, for example, is already anticipate before. So you start ordering already the material and you can plan the maintenance before the machine literally breaks. Because the most important thing, what we always have to understand, is customer, is end product, and the quality on the side is the most important thing. What you do not want is that a production machine stops, because it will have effect through the entire organization. So based on live data, which is relatively simple to start with, you can implement this, and you can be a big value for a company. And yeah, that's important thing to know for companies as well, that IoT is not futuristic. I mean, we understand every company would love to have drones flying around, having robots running around, but our advice from Ivy's point of view, start first looking at your existing assets. Start from the beginning, the low-hanging fruit. What you can already improve, relatively simple in a short term. And once you achieve that, you go to the next step. And then, of course, in a period of time, you can start having, if you want, those drones, of course, as well possible. But yeah, that I think it's the right approach. Start with the low-hanging fruit in your company, and then get the message across the entire company, because it's important that the entire company believes in Industry 4.0, believes that efficiency can be done via IoT relatively easy, and then the result will pay off in the return on investment quite fast, where you can step on another new excited journey to improve the next step. And that doesn't need to be complex. It doesn't need to cost a lot of money. It's just looking what you have and use everything what you have at this moment.
And maybe if I can also add,
Sure.
maybe my last comment.
No, absolutely.
Thank you. Very often, I think also the customer expectation is really not a product-based discussion, but rather on the value added. Really how we, so if it's Dell, if it's Anson or other or IoT provider, what's really the value added that we can also deliver to the customer, rather than really straight going into this kind of, dangerous, I would say, product discussion, or really, okay, that now I have a nice platform and I can sell you, all potential functionalities on Earth, but really trying to make a deep analysis on the customer, when the customer stands, really also assess the IoT digital maturity of a customer, because as I was mentioning before, if you take an average automation customer, maybe they have not, well, on average, of course, a real, IoT maturity, whereas if you maybe deal with other kind of customer that can have also a different approach already to IoT. But that's also one of my recommendations when I also myself work with customer, really being more into the listener mood, really making sure that you really get as an IoT expert the customer needs, what's the pain point, and then really define, I would say, a mid long-term strategy. Really try to engage the customer rather not on a short period of time, because that's also not the core of IoT, but rather on a mid and long-term time, because so in this way you really make sure you ensure that also you as a company you gain a certain market share, so you are also profitable with your customers, and at the same time also you make your end customer happy. So I think it's a kind of win-win situation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nisi. That's a very, very valid and important point. And maybe I can ask Mr. Farrugia and Mr. Turku if they adopt the same approach when dealing with customers in trying to focus mostly on the value added of the proposed IoT solutions rather than specifically the costs or anything else. So I don't know, what's your take on that?
One of the approaches we adopt is that of a pilot project. We try to pilot a project together with the customer. Even sometimes we do it even at no cost. Since it's something new, we understand that some customers might be doubtful, uncertain of certain things. This is like the famous example that, when you're maybe in a food fair or food festival, there's always the sample that you need to, taste, and if you like, then you buy the actual box of chocolates or box of food. We try to do the same technique, but for IoT. but it works. So what we do is we find the customer, we tell him, listen, how are you solving this problem, or what are you doing to measure this data? We try and develop a pilot project, a use case, and we actually say, okay, pick up two machines, 3 machines, or 2 devices, and we're gonna like show you what we can do. And then when he can, because it's one thing seeing what IoT can do for you from someone else, like you seeing, a presentation, a generic presentation. It's one thing. It's another thing that you're actually seeing your own data now and immediately seeing what's missing, what are you missing, and what you can know more with IoT. So the approach is usually what we do, even though if it requires an investment from our side, but unfortunately we're used to this, especially when it's a new technology. We'll say, listen, let us help you. Let us show you maybe for 2-3 months what this technology can do for you. And usually, as they say, half of the sale, half of the conviction is half of the process of getting convinced is actually touching and seeing the actual solution working. And this is an approach, as my colleague was saying, that we see that the pilot project approach is usually the most, let's say, effective approach, because the customer can see and touch what IoT can really do for him, apply it to his business, and also then once he sees the benefits, he says, usually it sells itself. Usually, if it really works and if it really makes a difference, then he'll tell you, listen, I want to implement now the whole solution throughout my whole factory or my whole distribution, whatever it is, because it makes sense and it actually brings value to our business.
Listening to Mr. Farrugia, I don't know if you adopt the same approach at Dell Technologies.
We are working in a similar manner, also together with IoT partners that we're working with, and going to customers and the same, trying to understand their needs, what are the main challenges of theirs. And of course, we're trying to position ourselves in order to, and our technology to help the customers solve their problems and ease their processes as much as possible. So we have a similar approach. We also have the drive to have proof of concepts. We are helping our customers with solutions which they test, and then if they want to implement, they will ask us to do the full-scale project and integrate it in their solution.
That's fantastic. Mr. Müller, earlier on you mentioned the low-hanging fruit that businesses should consider in trying to harness, embrace IoT technologies. Possibly you might want to give us some tangible examples of these low-hanging fruit.
Well, one of the approaches which we do as IVY, if we approach a company which want to start innovating on the area of Industry 4.0 with like a Kickstarter, and that is a small, simple approach that we sit down with the customer. We look at their current processes, and from that current processes, we look, okay, what is the low-hanging fruit to implement? And with that low-hanging fruit, we mean existing assets which are already available at the business organization, and we analyze the processes or movements, and based on that we create a roadmap. And with this roadmap we are structured step by step on a short period. We can explain the customer how we can improve these small improvements which are already available at the factory by just collecting more data, looking at movements within the factory, looking at your warehousing, how actions are standardized, but also how companies communicate internally. I mean, it's a company, as everyone knows, has existed several departments, and what is as well really important for a company is that all departments speak the same language, communicate in an efficient way, and that's as well part of IoT, where we can implement and the reality that departments within an organization start talking efficient, more understandable with each other based on the available data. And that is basically what we do. Of course, when we tell them, okay, this is your roadmap, this is how you improve, we're not there yet. I mean, what we do not want is that the customer is busy implementing something new, why they have to focus on their core product. So we want as well that we guide them, we help them, we take that monkey from their shoulder and we put it on ours, and we guide them through the whole process till the first low-hanging fruit, relatively simple start of innovation will be achieved.
Thanks so much, Mr. Mueller. I'd like to welcome as well Mr. Sean Taylor. He joined us now during this panel discussion. So, Mr. Taylor, it's great to have you. So maybe you can jump into it straight away and maybe share your thoughts, your insights on how collective data can be harnessed to unlock opportunities for operational efficiency.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, apologies. My wife has been taken ill with COVID, so I'm just back from the hospital. So this seems to be the theme of the last couple of years. But yeah, so really, my what I would add to that is there's always relationships between these data sets, and these data sets tend to be siloed. So you'd have a BMS system, you'll have management systems, workplace management systems, et cetera. And normally these are very siloed and there's no interoperability at all, which results in, poor value for the customers. The actual, outputs and benefits that can be achieved are very restricted. And really by combining these data sets into one common platform, and I'm sure some of the speakers have already covered this to some extent, you can create real value. So we really saw great examples of this, if I stick with the COVID theme of my introduction, when we combine in things like occupancy, CO2 levels, operating times of plants, visitors, etc. And that's a combination of existing data that lives within the building and additional data that you might bring in through IoT devices, etc.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Taylor. Possibly, if I may add, what are the solutions such as Facilio address challenges of connected building operations? Because I know that's a keen interest you have.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been an evangelist for breaking down sort of siloed sort of single supplier solutions and really having technical solutions that are open and agnostics so that clients can just combine best of breed to deliver, the best solutions of all. And Facilio is a software platform that's completely agnostic as far as integrating with existing systems that you've probably been discussing during today, but also acting as that single pane of glass that customers can then consume, derive value, whether it's reports, automated workflows, those kind of things. So that's really the platform that, or the solution that Facilio provides and how our technology is being designed. So completely agnostic north and southbound and really interoperable with everybody else on this call. I would say that the best solutions I see from this is really when you have collaboration. There's not really any brand or companies that's got this all covered. And when you have, good companies with interoperability that can work together, that's when you really see success with these projects.
Thank you so much, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Farrugia, I know you've got a keen interest in supporting Malta becoming a sort of a test base for such emerging technologies in IoT. Why Malta is possibly best placed in this regard?
I think Malta is let's not maybe overrate, but it's a perfect platform for such technology. First of all, it's a small island, so in terms of infrastructure coverage, although there are its challenges, but it's smaller. And I think, as everyone knows, in a small patch of land, you can find various use cases. So you've got various industries, factories, distribution companies, transport companies, all kinds of use cases can be found here, and they can be used to implement, test, develop various technologies, especially IoT solutions. We, in fact, use Malta. We're based in Malta, but of the digitalization aspect of the importance of digitalization, and also how IoT, for example, can affect their business in a good way. So you've got also that cooperation, that support, that understanding from potential customers to try out new technology. Also, I must say that I think thanks to Tech.mt, this summit is happening. It's I think a show of force that Malta is embracing and is harnessing such new tech, not just to obviously improve the overall life business operations in Malta, but also to promote such technology to outside our shores. I think I like to refer to this like an ecosystem. In fact, we're trying as a company, as Hands-On, we operate from a technopark, which is located in the north part of Malta. And one of the things we're working, and I can announce it right now, is to have like an IoT village set up. So basically you can come in here and basically you have practically everything connected, from the skip to the manhole to the water pump to the light. And it will be like an IoT village where people can come and see and test various technologies, and perhaps also implement then these technologies in their country, in their business, in their office. So I think Malta is very, very, let's say, at the forefront, and is working very hard to let's say, perhaps acquire the pole position, the first position, or at least top 10 position when it comes to the development of IoT.
Thank you so much, Mr. Farrugia. I don't know if Mr. Nizi, Mr. Muller, Mr. Turku, and Mr. Taylor wants to add anything else before we wrap up this panel discussion, focusing mostly on the platforms related intrinsically to IoT. If you do have any questions, please, attendees, feel free to chip in virtually and ask any questions you might have to our panelists. Otherwise, I don't know, Mr. Nizi and Mr. Turku, if you want to add anything else, feel free to do so very briefly. And
one just final remark from my side. I think it's also very much important really to develop like a specific and verticalized solution with customers, really not coming away from this generalistic approach. But usually also our customers, at least at Siemens, are also looking for a specific, whether if it's a food and beverage, or it could be an aerospace or chemical, pharma, an OEM, industrial machinery, and so on and so forth. So really those kind of customers are looking also for a specific IoT approach, and not rather this general one, because so we have also seen that by applying generalistic approach, very often also customer doesn't really feel comfortable, and at the end of the day it doesn't really bring much value. So that's also very imperative, I think, for also most of us here in this round, really to work with customers and develop specific IoT solution for them.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Nizi. So with that, I believe we can conclude this panel discussion. Once again, I'd like to thank Mr. Stanley Muller, Mr. Sabin Turku, Mr. Jeffrey Farrugia, Mr. Fabrizio Nizi, and also Mr. Sean Taylor. We wish you a speedy recovery to your wife, Mr. Taylor, on behalf of everyone involved here at Valletta Tech Summit. So thank you so much. We wish you a very pleasant afternoon to all of you. So with that, we can conclude these 12 hours of intense content related to IoT technology and emerging technologies. We've discussed the IoT specifically today, different facades of IoT. It's a very complex and not a straightforward discussion we had over the past few hours today during the second and last day of the Valletta Tech Summit. However, may I kindly remind you that the Valletta Tech Summit, powered by Tech.mt, will be back this June. So I'd like to extend an invitation to all of you to be with us for the Valletta Tech Summit this June. We are delighted to bring you yet another event. This time round, it will be all about tech and the creative world. So while looking forward to see you there, feel free to join us. I'd like to thank all of you for your time, and we wish you all a pleasant afternoon on behalf of Tech.mt.
See you at the next conference, The Creative Side of the Digital Economy, on the 22nd and 23rd of June, 2022.